I was number one. It was a proud moment. I think I screen capped it. It lasted for like 72 hours.
But you were
It was
there, you
because
know,
Adam
You were
Andra,
there.
like, it was because Andra, like, had, was
had
on
a baby.
vacation and probably had forgotten to log things for the last like 3 weeks or something. And I just had this like momentarily moment of like pure bliss. And now, back down where I belong around number 3 or 4.
This is Climbing Gold.
Do you feel like you belong at this stage? Like, ostensibly we are chatting about that imposter syndrome, but like compared to some other people, like, do you feel like you belong in the upper tier or like at the sort of utmost level? Because there's a lot of data that would say you sure as hell do. I mean, namely some of the freaking things you were climbing in your film, but yeah. Do you feel like you belong, or do you ever kind of feel like haunted by those older feelings?
No, I definitely feel like I don't belong.
Mhm.
But again, I think it's just always a balance. I mean, there are moments where I'm like, oh, I'm awesome. I'm so rad, but I would say that probably in the last year or two, they are, well, yeah, last year was kind of rough. I was gonna say they're pretty balanced, but last year was a little tough. I felt like I came up short on a lot of the things I wanted to do last year. And also I was in Europe for 8 months of the year, which, like, for any American climber, at least sport climber, bouldering is maybe slightly different, but any American sport climber that starts to think you're badass, you should just go spend 6 months in Europe, and I promise you will immediately not think you're badass. um, but yeah, I think it's all just a balance, like, because it's not a feeling thing. Like, it's just, I know that I'm way less talented and way weaker than so many of my quote unquote peers. Um, but then there are moments when I'm like, well, you know, the sport's big enough that not everyone can be as strong as Adam Mondra, and there's enough like room for people to tell their story that aren't the strongest climber in the world. So that could be me. Like, I once heard something that really stuck with me, and it was about how incompetent people, they
Overestimate their own
overestimate
abilities.
their own abilities. And and I think that the people who truly understand whatever like profession they're in or whatever path they're taking or athletic pursuit that they're in, those are the people who understand actually, like, how much of a difference there can be between X, Y, Z, and how to a normal person, they might see like me and Alex Magos in the same category, but there's no comparison between the two of us. Like, there's not even close. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm probably as close to Magos is as like your average teenager who goes to the climbing gym like once a week is to me.
Me to Johnathan is like Johnathan to Alex Megos. Where you're like, yeah,
Yeah,
you can
maybe
climb some of the same
yeah,
routes. That's actually
yeah.
probably sort of close.
You're
Yeah, we
saying
can kind
Alex is like an average teenager in the gym?
Actually, I'm probably worse than a lot of teenagers in the gym now.
I still like I find this interesting because if you truly think about it, like, it's not like you can think of or name many people that have climbed routes that are, much harder, that, like, there's not a ton of people on that list that are climbing way harder than you.
Mm.
It's not like there's hundreds of people above you and you're just like down in the pack. It's like you're number 4 on 8A. You are a talented, very gifted rock climber. Also, the breadth of the hard routes that you climbed is much greater than a lot of the people that have climbed harder routes than you. I see that as like it being hard for you to, like it is for all of us, to accept that you are a high performer and that you are in the top of the pack.
Mm.
Johnathan, did you know
Yeah.
just now before Lisi said it what your 8A.NU rating was?
Yeah, because he
Just
used to be
curious.
number one. Surely he knows that, or was it number two for a while? So surely he
Well,
knows that it
no,
slipped a
no,
tiny bit.
I was number one. It was a proud moment. I think I screen capped it. It lasted for like 72 hours.
But you were
It was
there,
because
You
Adam
were
Andra,
there.
like, it was because Andra, like, was
had
on
a baby.
vacation and probably had forgotten to log things for the last like 3 weeks or something. And I just had this like momentarily moment of like pure bliss. And now, back down where I belong around number 3 or 4. You know, I was pretty confident in my third position, but now there's this young French dude who is so freaking strong and just like climbs everything he ever tries. And I was like, recently, I was like, you know what? I think it's number 4 or lower for me for the rest of my life. He's so good. But no, to answer your question, Lauren, I sometimes know, but I sometimes don't know. Like I don't actually pay too close attention to that.
Well, I'm
I
curious,
actually-
especially like I am not clearly on 8A.NU. I know Fitz isn't. Lisi, are you?
I am. Yeah,
Oh,
but
nice.
I'm anonymous because I don't
I-
care about rankings. There's no point.
I literally read it like every day for the news. I mean, all you guys are like, oh, we don't do 8A. I'm like, I load 8A every single day and just read the
It's
news,
the
look
best
at some of the
source of news
rankings.
in
Yeah, it's
It
like
climbing, that's for
is.
in
sure.
terms of
Yeah.
pure sending, it's like
Yeah.
the best way to see what's going on.
By far. Yeah, by far.
But
It's like
based
it's
on,
like the
actually, I
New York
think that-
Times of what's a sleazy tabloid actually, because it's not the New York Times. It's like
With New
you know,
York Post.
yeah.
yeah, it's like the New York Post of climbing or something, where you can get all the news, but it's kind of sleazy.
No, it's not sleazy. I think it's more about raw data. And actually, speaking of
No,
data, I
the
do-
editorial stuff is kind of sleazy. You know, it's like
Oh,
it's
the
sort of
editorial
Jen's writing
stuff.
like
Yeah,
random
yeah,
opinion
totally.
stuff. It's all slightly
Yeah.
weird. You're like, it's all like mistranslated with like weird questions. But you're like, oh, it's anyway. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I could be off here, but I believe that Mountain Project and 8A.NU are the 2 most visited rock climbing websites, rock climbing related websites. For a long time, I think it was climbingmagazine.com, but I think now it's Mountain Project and 8A. Or I
That
know
makes
8A
sense.
is 1 or 2 because it's crazy. Like yeah, I mean, like you said, I think a lot of people check it daily just to like check news and
So I have a question, Fitz, actually. So
Yeah.
so imposter syndrome is when you get some kind of external accolades and you feel like you don't deserve them, right? I mean, you've achieved some kind of success, but you've on the inside you feel like you don't deserve that success for whatever reason. But I'm sort of curious because in your case, Johnathan, I feel like it's actually the opposite of imposter syndrome in that because like normally when people talk about imposter syndrome, it's like they get promoted in their job, they're like, now I'm the boss, but I don't feel like the boss. But like in your
Mm.
case, you are the boss in terms of, you know, having put up the hardest routes in the country and, you know, many of and whatever. You know, you can list things in whatever way you want. And like you certainly have the resume to back up the claim that, you know, you're the strongest sport climber in the US right now, basically. You know, you can frame it however you want, but like there's a tremendous CV behind it. Like you've done a lot of things, but you just haven't gotten the public accolades around those things as much. And so in some ways that's the inverse of a standard imposter syndrome scenario, isn't it? Or am I misunderstanding?
Well, we should just ask him a question. Are you the boss, Johnathan?
I'm not the boss. I'm not the boss.
But
I don't
and to be fair though, literally no climber would say they're the boss. You know, Chris Sharma is the boss, but he would never say it. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
he
yeah.
would say that
No.
like, oh, there's so many young kids who are so much stronger than me. And even if you asked Alex Megos or somebody, he'd be like, well, I'm terrible at onsighting and other people are better, even though he onsighted, you know, whatever. Like he would claim his own weaknesses. It's like every climber is aware of their own weaknesses. And, you know, like no climber is going to say I'm the, like Adam Onder would never call himself the boss, even though he's arguably the greatest rock climber of all time.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think like and to exactly to speak to your point, Alex, what I was trying to say is that early in my career, like I had this feeling of like, oh, I'm so awesome. Why aren't I achieving like from a professional standpoint,
Why
like
aren't I
why
getting the
don't I have
recognition?
money? Like why do I still have to work a job? Like all this XYZ stuff. And then I think that as I've learned more over the course of 12 or 13 years, now, even though I might have some of those things that I wanted back then, I'm much more like, my attitude is much more just like feeling immensely grateful for what I have as opposed to feeling like I want more.